What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our reaction show where we are going to talk all about the Riverhounds 1-1 draw with Birmingham. I am Mike Sparks. Joining me for this one is Steve Mattiace, Justin Ashcraft, and Charles, a.k.a. Josh Brokaw. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I know that this is probably not a game that we want to talk about, but I'm glad that all three of you are here because I feel like you each may fall on sort of differing sides of what the outcome of this game means for the team moving forward. We will just have to wait and see. Steve, how's it going, man?
Fine. Yesterday, got up to Clarion County area, Knox, PA. Never been there before, and got 8+ miles on the North Country Trail. So now over 50% of the way towards my yearly goal on the trail to get the patch. So that was fun. Yeah, that's
where do you
life.
get the actual patch from? Like,
so it's the North Country Trail organization. So basically, if you hike 100 miles within a single year on the trail, you can pay $5 for a patch. The fun part about it, I think I said this a while ago, but the fun part about it is Rory will also get a dog tag. Because he's gone on every hike with me, so that'll kind of be fun. So that's what I'm looking forward to with it more than even the patch. Like, the patch is cool, but him getting a dog tag is a lot of fun.
That's very cool. That's awesome. Justin, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, other than soccer life, I'm doing great. We had a pretty good weekend, mostly chill because Raina Jean came home from school with a school virus at the beginning of the week, and then decided to share it with Laura Ellen and I because we have taught her to share, and it just loves giving us those viruses. So we had a pretty chill weekend, just trying to rest and recover and all of that, and so it was a good weekend.
Tis the season. I literally just scheduled flu and COVID shots for me and my wife for Tuesday, just because we're getting there. So I feel for you. Josh, how are you, sir?
Good. Just got my flu and COVID shot today. Oh, nice. Actually,
turns how are you feeling?
My right arm is really sore, which I think was that might have been the flu one, and the left arm feels fine. But turns out if you get them at Giant Eagle and you have an Advantage card, you get $5 back per shot for Giant Eagle bucks, whatever. So between me and Liz, it's sweet. We just made $20. So that's kind of cool. Didn't expect that. So yeah. And then I guess other than that, don't know if you've probably haven't heard this, but Don't Let the Scene Go Down on Me collective. I've been going down this rabbit hole. It is basically a whole bunch of local punk scene concerts that they are the ones who help book them, and it's at Mr. Small's Funhouse, Mr. Roboto, the Government Center, which is a record store that they also have a stage, so they throw concerts there. It's all these small places that punk shows are at. So it's all gathered in one spot, and you can see them all. And so I've been adding a whole bunch of concerts to my calendar based off of that. So
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, good for you. We I'm a little bit still tired recovering today. The past week has been crazy. On Friday, my wife helped to organize a 5K for the middle school, which is an annual thing that they do. So we kind of did that in the morning, and then Saturday we camped. It's called the ICC, which is the International Conservation Center, but essentially it is an offshoot. It's owned by the Pittsburgh Zoo, but it's 2 hours out away from the Pittsburgh Zoo, and it's essentially an elephant sanctuary. So they have I think they have 6 elephants there right now. They have capacity for up to 15, but just imagine a bunch of free roaming acreage where these elephants can go and just live their best life. They also have a camel, and they have some reindeer, and they're going to be getting some bison and breeding true American bison. but we got to camp there. And so there was like really cool views. The weather was kind of miserable. Somehow my tent was the only one that stayed dry. Like everyone else got soaked overnight. But they did warn us that the elephants apparently have really good aim at throwing stuff. And so they can hit you with rocks and or their own poo. And we were like, that would be pretty cool to get hit by some like flying elephant poo. It did not happen. But very much Jurassic Park vibes as you're driving in, where like big metal gates that say like do not enter, and then they swing open. There's giant tanks that say flammable, and the kids were like, you do realize this is how we're gonna die, right? Like we're going into Jurassic Park. This is not gonna end well. But it did end well. Apparently, I don't think everyone can camp there. Like that's not an open invitation for everybody, but they do wagon tours that last like 45 minutes. And we did that too. And you can sign up and do that. Apparently they're having a concert out there in a few weeks as like a fundraiser. And they will actually be selling paintings that the elephants do. Like the elephants will lift their feet up and they'll put paint on them. And then they like press down on canvas. Just really, really cool. Yeah, it was a really, really good time. So tired, but it was a good time for sure.
Cool.
Before we get into the game, I do want to apologize to everybody out there. I think on the last show, I was like, we've got like a full week planned of like interviews and pregame, and none of that happened. Like just the entire week got away from me. Just too much other stuff going on in life. So hopefully this week will be better. Fingers crossed. We will see. But no promises. We'll see where we can go from there. Guys, I guess let's get into the game. The Hounds did draw 1-1 with the Legion. I think there's a lot of feels around this. So I think probably everybody listening and or watching this sort of knows what happened, sort of saw what happened. We can get into the details of the game if you want to get into the details. But I also know that there's probably a lot of emotions and thoughts that are sort of front and center. So I'm just going to kick to you, and whatever you're feeling and you want to talk about, you go ahead and talk about. And Josh, you're sort of top of my view here on our little wall of faces. So I'm going to start with you. What do you want to talk about as it relates to this one?
Let's start out with something positive, at least a little bit. Birmingham Dream Killer strikes again. Kizza scores against Birmingham, and it is like clockwork. It's so cool that this meme gets to live on for a little bit longer. What is it? I think he scored 15 goals in all, and like 5 of those have been against Birmingham. So, that at least we have that to go off. And it was a great goal too. It was, in front of the Steel Army. So that's always fun. And so that's one thing we can at least take away from this. That's not negative.
Yeah. Steve, give me how are you feeling or takeaway or something. What do you want to talk about?
Closing out games. Still a problem for us. When you have the lead, giving it up. Granted, Birmingham has quality, but I think if we're going to say that we deserve to be a lot higher in the table based on the way we've played this season, it's performances like this that I think undermine that. Sure, we've had many, many chances where we could have gone ahead for 2, but it felt like we didn't keep pushing forward as much as we could. And it's just like, I feel deflated after it.
I mean, something.
I think what's interesting.
Oh, I was just going to say that something that I was thinking about with that is, again, after the subs, it's so like, I don't really think we can blame the subs for this, but at the same time, it just like disrupted the game, and but it's hard because they did look, gassed. Like Kizza looked very gassed. Like I remember making a comment, like I think it was actually like 10 or 15 minutes before, saying like, hey, Kizza needs to get taken out because he's looking like he's super tired here. So it's not so much, at least for me, not like a, hey, you did something wrong here by subbing out who you subbed out. But it just, we've seen it happen before where as soon as we make some subs and change up the lineup, it seems like we take too long to get into gear afterwards, and that's when slip ups happen and goals happen against us.
So that was going to be one of the other things I talked about since you brought it up, Josh. I'll jump on it now. But again, some of those times where it's like questioning Bob's decisions with the subs. And I think what you are identifying there is that he subbed 3 players at once right before that, right? It's not like he rolled out the subs and he waited till the 76th minute before making the first sub. And that is where it's kind of frustrating to see, because you space those out over like a 2 and a 1 throughout the windows. Maybe you're in a little bit better of position instead of having 3 guys come onto the field, trying to reacclimate, get in their position, get into the flow of the game. I don't know, right? Like, I'm not the one making those decisions, but to me, they seem suspect in that situation like that, when, especially waiting until the 76th minute for the first sub.
Yeah, if something we should do is probably look back at the number of times that we have given up goals after the sub, because this is a recurring thing. The goal happened 3 minutes after we made the subs. The one thing that I will say is that the subs were not like for like subs per se. We basically took off 2 strikers and replaced them with 1 striker and a midfielder. So there was like sort of a tactical change to how we were approaching the game. But again, 3 minutes after the subs, it just feels like this is a recurring issue. And, Steve, to your point, you mentioned that it's kind of like deflating. There was an interview with Lily post-game that you kind of feel for the guy, because he seemed to be deflated as well. He pretty much just said, like, I don't think we're going to make the postseason at this point. Now, that could be tactical on his part. We've talked about before how, when the team gets low, then Lily tends to go high. And when the team gets high, Lily tends to go low, just to try to keep them even keel. So him saying, like, I don't think we're going to make it at this point, could that be bulletin board material for the team to say we're going to prove you wrong? Maybe. Who knows? But Justin, how are you feeling after all of the things from yesterday?
Yeah, I think to add on to kind of both things that have been said, one would be, I think, to start positive, I think besides the fact that Kiz scored the goal, I mean, that's one of the best deliveries I've seen all season on a set piece. Mertz puts that ball on a rope. It's not a ball that Kizza has to get a lot on. He just has to kind of refocus it from where the keeper was going, where the ball was going, and get it out of the keeper's reach. And so I think that's one. And then I think 2, my other positive from this game is I think we are still seeing a coming of age and an excellence from Eric Dick, and he's making saves and he needs to. Unfortunately, we gave up 1, but I think it's he's making this that he needs to, and that's good to see as well. I think the other thing about the subs for me, the challenge in that moment is you kind of pigeonhole yourself into what you're doing at that point. Of when you make 3 at a time, you're kind of saying, all right, we're going to sit back and defend. And then you give up the goal, and now you got to go attack. So now you got to make 2 more subs to get back on the attack, which doesn't really help the team in that lane. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I think you want to make those, if you're going to make make 3 subs, I think you want to make that around 60 to 65 when there's guys on the field who still have some energy and can still cover as the 3 guys who just came on are trying to figure out the pace of the game and all that kind of stuff. And then they're acclimated. But who knows? You put them on at 60 and you give up a goal, it's the same kind of deal. But you do give yourself a lot longer to get back in it. And then I think the other thing past that kind of positive past the subs was Bradley Sample had 2 good shots again to try to get us back in the lead. And just couldn't quite convert, which is disappointing. But, the shot from way outside the box that he just went over the crossbar, he put a little more dip on that, and that's 2-1, and we're talking a very different game. So this game was a lot closer to being positive than it was necessarily being negative. So it's hard to fear out the emotions behind this game in a lot of ways.
It is interesting because, I think we're all talking, well, not all of us, but I think some of us are feeling this as a loss when really it was a draw. And, Steve, you and I were talking off air where we said, and we'll get into this in a bit, but we've said, oh, okay, if we can maintain 2 points a game for the rest of the season, we should be in a good spot. Well, we got 1 point here. If we get 3 at Miami, we've averaged 2 over this game in Miami, and we're still, in theory, sitting okay. Now, there's a lot of nuance to that, and we can talk through that. But I am curious, just in sort of hearing you guys talk about this a little bit, and especially about the subs. I'm just curious where you guys stand, because I don't know where I stand, but I think it's an interesting question. In a game like this where you're leading 1-0 and you get to, say, the 65th minute, are you the type of person that says, let's make some changes and get defensive to try to maintain this lead? Or are you the type of person that says, let's make some changes and stay and keep what we're doing to keep the pressure on them to potentially get another goal, knowing that you might be exposing yourself a little bit on defense? There's like wins and losses in both cases. Mm-hmm. But Steve, I'll start with you because you're sort of top of my window here. Are you going to keep the formation and keep going? Or are you going to try to get more defensive to try to lock down those 3 points?
Yeah. So as I think about it, I don't know that you have to make that decision in the 60th minute, because you don't have to make 3 subs in the 60th minute, right? You might make the sub for who's the most tired, and you can do a like for like, or you can choose to change up the strategy at that point, but you still leave yourself with a lot of flexibility down the line. And so let's say Bob decided 60th minute, yeah, I got to get Eddie off the field. He's just not able to keep up. And you put EJ on, like for like substitution. That's fine with me. Or you put Kenny, or you put Sample on at that point. That's still okay with me, because I don't think you're changing the game in the same way that he did waiting till the 76th minute and doing 3 subs. But the other thing for me is I feel like he put himself in that position to where he had to make tactical subs or tactical changes with the subs regardless, because he only had 1 forward on the bench. And so that to me is problematic in the sense that you get hurt, or somebody gets hurt and has to come out of the game, and you need to put another forward on. You've only got 1. What happens then after that later if you're trying to make more attacking substitutions into the future? And I don't know if that's because players aren't available or not, because like we've always said, we never know with Bob. We don't know the injury list. But to me, I'm looking at who was even available, and I went back and looked, and I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, we didn't even have another forward that he could have brought on after that point, after that goal.
Yeah. I appreciate the detailed response, but you did not answer my question. I'm going to hold you to it. Are you someone that would keep the formation or go more defensive?
I think I'm going to try to keep the formation in the 60th minute.
Josh, where do you stand on that? Are you going to keep doing what we're doing, or are you going to try to get defensive and keep the lead?
Same, but honestly, my answer was going to be more towards the whole situation where I feel like, especially in this game, like it was working and we knew it was working. So that's why I'm saying keep the same. But at the same time, I'm also the whole, hockey change basically that we do. If you're trying to run out the game, there's also that aspect of it. It's like if you make 3 different subs, 3 different times, you run the clock out more than if you just do wholesale 3 different people at one time. And if the goal is to seeing out this game with a victory, I feel like that is a better choice, because you have like 5 windows, or is it 3 windows per half? I can't remember. So if that's the case, like, just do a couple at a time, one at a time. And then at the last one, if you feel the need to completely change up the tactics, you can make, a couple people at once. But yeah, it just keep it the same, especially when you're only winning by 1. And, I don't think that's when you park the bus with this team this year. You need to be at a better score, distribution to do that.
Yeah. Justin, where do you stand?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at this point in the season, in a season that you're chasing the playoff line, why would you not go after the game? And I think for me, it's frustrating, because I think EJ EJ is a victim of circumstance a lot this season, where he's getting put into games where he's the lone striker in a, thinking back to Indy a couple weeks ago, he ran as the lone striker all game that game. Now he gets put on and he's the lone striker, and now it's like, well, you have to score because we need a goal. And now it looks disappointing that he doesn't, but it's like he's got no one up there with him. He's got no one to play off of him. He's got no one who's running behind. There's nothing for him to do other than try to hold the ball up and hope that 5 midfielders can come up and make a play. And it feels like it's just putting him in a bad, now you give him 20 minutes with Jacqueline to see if he can score. If Kiz is tired, then I think, okay, well, maybe you put another one behind him at that point, and then we're talking a very different game. So my thing is, in the middle of a season, I don't know. I don't know what you do in the middle of the season. But at this point, I think you have to go after games. And so it's frustrating for me sitting there and saying, okay, you're making this up. Obviously, you're trying to lock down shop. And that's, I don't know. That's frustrating to me.
Yeah. Guys, hey, man. Okay, so we talked about we talked about Kiz's goal. We talked about Eric Dick sort of playing really well, making some good saves. It felt like Birmingham's goal came just a little too easy. Like, I know that Suber was on him. Suber overran it just a little bit, but also, like, I don't feel like it was Suber's fault that shot got off. It felt like it was almost like a comedy of errors. And it was also a good shot. I mean, it could have been savable, but at the same time, had we scored like that, we would have been like, it was a good shot. So, other thoughts on this game, or do we want to talk about sort of the bigger picture of what we think it means from here? Was there anything else that you sort of, I guess another sellout is a positive. It seems to be that, like, no matter what this team does, we're still selling out Highmark. So that's good. We were talking a little bit in Slack that I don't remember the last time that we wore the bridge kit at home. And maybe that's just me having like a faulty memory, but it seems like we're always wearing white. There was a lot of complaints from people watching the game on TV of the white kits clashing with like the goldish kits that Birmingham was wearing. Like, I feel like we should be better about that. This is the second time now that we've talked about what the other team is wearing in our stadium. So,
gold's pretty close to yellow, so I think it still applies with my rule that we should never let the other team wear yellow in our own stadium. And so, once again, having the away team wearing gold, yellow, whatever, while we're wearing white, I don't care if you need to sell more white kits. Put on yellow or black in that situation, and don't let them wear gold.
Yeah, Josh, you were there. What was the atmosphere like in the stadium?
It was good. I was really kind of wondering what it would look like and if we would actually have a lot of people show up. Yeah, sure, they sell out the stadium, but it doesn't really mean people show up, especially when it's a rainy day like it was. So, at tailgate, it was looking a little bit sparse, and I was just thinking like, it's probably going to be like a rain game where it's going to be just the diehards in the stadium. That's pretty much it, and the grandstand's going to look pretty empty. But no, it was pretty packed in there. I was pleasantly surprised, and they stuck around. I mean, the weather didn't get bad, so that does help. I think it maybe sprinkled a little bit during the game, but it was hardly anything. But the fact that they even showed up was a good sign. And the Steel Army was loud, and we were having fun, all the way up to that goal from Birmingham, but recovered and kept on singing along. So it was good. But yeah, going back again, just reiterating, I don't understand what's the big deal about wearing, trying to figure out wearing yellow in the stadium for us. And it's just annoying.
Yeah. Guys, any other sort of thoughts about this game in particular before we talk about the bigger picture?
That one save by Dick, that point blank save, was pretty fantastic. I mean, reaction save, he was lucky that the ball was right in front of him, but to make that save still with the hand up like that was pretty spectacular to watch and fun to watch.
Van Ogle is 38 years old, and he is still playing. What the I'm gonna be honest though. He was also walking a little bit funny when he came up, and I'm like wondering if he has a sore back. And he had a couple situations where you can tell he didn't want to kick it long. He just kind of passed it to defender. But yeah, 38 years old and he's still kicking. That's crazy.
Still gives some hope to us old guys, right, Josh?
No, I'm saying he needs to retire. Get out of there. What are you doing, man?
Listen,
I
Mike,
can't.
Mike referred to my birthday. I'm turning 38, next week, and so don't.
Yeah, and you're not out there.
Let's not talk. No, let's not talk about 38 like it's old, like crazy old. You know what I mean?
I'm 40. All right.
I like how, yeah, all of us are that age or older.
Yeah. I see a 38, 40-year-old out there. I'm like, I know I shouldn't be out there. You should not be out there.
See, I'm the opposite. Like, I distinctly remember having this conversation like 5 or 6 years ago where it's like you could still look at guys and be like, they're older than me. Like, I can still get out there and do it if I really wanted to. I'm beyond that now. Like, we're talking about Van Ogle at 38. And I'm like, no, I got a few years on him. It's not happening for me. Those days, and now it's just a bunch of kids. I just watch all the kids play.
Right.
Yeah. Hey. All right, guys. Well, let's talk about the broader picture of things. I'm going to throw the Eastern Conference standings up on the screen. There was a moment last night where we were leading 1-0, and we were in that 8th place spot. They kept talking about it ad nauseum on the broadcast. That is not the case right now because we got the 1 point instead of 3. We are still in 11th place, which is where we started last night. And above us, really, we're in 11th. We're trying to get to 8th. North Carolina is tied with us on 36 points. They have the advantage because of goal differential. Because, when you don't score for 8 games, that's kind of where you end up. Right above them is Hartford at 37 points. So only 1 point away from us. Loudoun is currently holding that 8th place spot with 38 points, which is only 2 above us. So, granted, again, we still have played one extra team from all 3 of those teams ahead of us. They will have to make that up at some point, and we will see how that all shakes out. But we are still only 2 points out of 8th, really a solid 3 points from being sole owner of 8th place. So this is not out of the realm of possibility for us to catch up and sort of make things happen. I know that we all sort of, I say we all, Josh, I don't actually know where you stand, so we can talk about that. Actually, Josh, I'm going to start with you because I do know where Steve stands and I know where Justin stands. Where do you stand on how you think whether or not we're going to make the playoffs or not based on the results from last night?
So the thing for me is there's a lot of math we can do and figure out where we're going to be in the standings and how it's going to work out. But as far as just the vibe goes for this, like if we can't put a game away at home when we direly need this game to happen and we end up, squeaking out a draw, no, I mean, it's not there for me. Yes, I know mathematically we can get there, but if we need us to win a whole bunch of games to make it happen, which we do need us to win a whole bunch of games to make it happen and some of them away, I know that we play Miami and that's I don't want to take it for granted, but that's the best case scenario is playing Miami. It's still, it does not give me hope if we're losing to Birmingham or drawing. I know it's not a loss, but we needed 3 points, in my opinion. And if we can't do that at home, I just don't see where there's any motivation as far as, thinking that we can actually do this. So
let me ask you.
Now.
Yeah, let me ask you before I bounce to the other guys. If we win at Miami, is that going to change your opinion of whether or not you think we're going to make the playoffs or not at this point?
No, I feel like winning at Miami is the bare minimum that needs to happen. And I think we can get that, we can put that away. It's what we do with these other teams because those are the ones that are still hunting for the playoff spot. So winning against Miami, that's just like, that's bare minimum. You have to do that. If they don't win against Miami, I'm saying we're not making the playoffs at all. Like there's no chance. But they're going to have a backup keeper because their keeper got a red card last game. So if we can't beat last place team in the East who's playing with the backup keeper, then game over, man. That's it.
Yeah. Steve, how are you feeling about things and whether or not you think we're going to make the playoffs as a result of this? I keep wanting to say loss. It was not a loss. It was a draw.
Yeah. I just want to say to Josh's last point, he says about the team that's second to last place.
Bah.
Do I feel bad about a point against Birmingham in the abstract? No. Do I like it a little less at home? No. But I think that the reason we're having this conversation is because the Hounds aren't as good as we think they should be. And we can talk for all sorts of reasons why we think that is. But I don't think that's really helpful. The reality is we are sitting in 11th place. There are a few teams ahead of us. And 2 weeks ago when we talked, I thought we were not likely to make the playoffs, but thought we could, because I thought we could end up anywhere from 11th to 5th. At this point, I don't see how we have any chance of ending any better than 8th, right? I think that Birmingham, Rhode Island, Indy are going to be fighting over 5th through 7th, and they're going to pick up enough points that the Hounds aren't going to be able to catch those teams. And so that means we're in a 4-way race for 8th place with 3 teams ahead of us for that spot that all get a chance to pick up extra points that we don't have, because they all have an extra game. And so, yeah, it's possible. Do I think it's probable? No. And I don't think it's probable because I think of results like last night where we have a golden opportunity and it's a must-win game, not in the sense of does it end our playoff hopes or not, but Birmingham at home when you're in the hunt for a playoff spot and you don't know how to close out the game. And we didn't do that. And so we wouldn't be in 11th place if we were good enough to be a playoff team at this stage in the season. And yet here we are.
Yeah. I mean, I think had we finished last night, finished the game out with 3 points, sitting in 8th place, I think a lot of us are feeling very differently about sort of these last 4 games. Justin, how are you feeling about things now that we just got the 1 point last night as opposed to 3?
Now, I feel like this sucks because now you put me on the defensive to defend my position of how I still feel about this team.
I wanted to end positive. I wanted you to bring it all back around.
So let me start here. You phrased the question to Josh and Steve. How do you feel after last night? Last night, not great.
Yeah.
I think that was a frustrating loss. And I think the reality is for this team, we've had, our last games, 3 of them have been the exact same pretty much. It's like we get an unlucky red card at the beginning of the Indy game, fight all game long, and then give up a stupid goal at the end, 2 minutes past the end of stoppage time, get a little unlucky there. Then we go and beat Rhode Island, which is fine. We needed to do that. That game was at home. We go to Tampa, we don't win, but I'm fine with that but again, we have Tampa on the ropes all game long, and then we give up 2 goals in the last 20 minutes and lose 2-1. And so that, again, it feels just like last night of like, hey, we just ran out of steam against a team that we had we had a better position again. But what I take a lot of solace in, and I'm trying to base my optimistic side on, is one is Lily's never missed the playoffs with the Riverhounds. So I think there's still something inside of Lily that I think can get this team going. Now it's disappointing, but I think to your point of him being exasperated last night, I would be exasperated after that game of I'm doing what I can to get us points here, and we keep giving up these goals, and I can't do anything about that because I'm on the sidelines. So do I think we're going to make them? No, I don't think we're, but so I don't blame him for saying that. But just looking over the results that the Hounds have had since the beginning of July, we've lost 2 games. We lost to Tampa. We lost to Monterey Bay. Monterey was the first game of July when we were still in our drought of goals, all that kind of stuff. After that game, though, we've only lost 1. We've scored 20 goals in the last 13 games. We've gotten basically 2 points per game, which 5 games ago we were saying, hey, we need to get 2 points a game from here to the end of the season to make the playoffs. And so I still think we're doing what we need to do, provided we get results from here on out. Now, I think our road here on out becomes a little bit easier in the sense that I think if you can get 3 against Miami, you may lose to Charleston, but most of the teams in our position in the table are losing to Charleston. So I'm okay with that, because you're like where we are in the table, everyone's losing to Charleston. And then you have that game against Loudoun, which I think is going to be a massive, massive, massive game. And so can you get a win in that game? And then can you get in at El Paso? Maybe. And I think even before this game, we were saying 10, 11 points probably gets you there. And so I think if you can win 3 out of 4, even if you lose at Charleston, which is going to feel bad, we're going to win against Miami, and then we're going to lose at Charleston. We're going to say, oh no, season's over. And we're going to say, all that's to be there. But if you beat Loudoun, again, you're making up points against the table. So then the other thing that I look at is the teams that we're fighting against still have left. And I would guess that I would venture to say that the 5 games that those teams have left versus the 4 games that we have left are a lot harder. Loudoun plays every Eastern Conference playoff team or team that they're racing to the playoffs from here on out. They've got 5 games against playoff. They've got Rhode Island, they've got Pittsburgh, they've got North Carolina, they've got Hartford. So they've got all these games left against teams that are still fighting on the playoff line, and they've lost 3 out of 5. So like the team, they're not doing well. They're not in a good spot. Hartford is doing well. They're the team that scares me the most. But again, they've got Loudoun, they've got North Carolina, I think, and they may have a game against Rhode Island or Birmingham left as well. And so they're fighting teams right there in the playoff mix and doing that as well. And then I think North Carolina, again, has a hard road to the end of the season. I think they play both Tampa Bay and Charleston still to the end of the season. And so they may have a couple games where they drop points. And so I really feel positive about, hey, if we can win against Miami, snag a point against Charleston, maybe, and then play some good games against Loudoun and El Paso, I still think we have a really good shot. And past that, I wouldn't, based on the form that Birmingham's in, I don't think that they were looking great last night. Could they go on a slide here to the end of the season and not do well? Maybe. And so could we maybe catch that? Maybe. But I'm not putting a lot of hope in that. But I think out of the 4 teams who are fighting for 8th, I think we've got the best shot to do it. And so I put a lot of faith in Lily, put a lot of faith in the overall form that the team has been in. And then I put a lot of faith in the games that our opponents have left.
Justin is 100% right in everything he says. It's a great argument, and it doesn't change how I feel at all.
Well, why not?
And
Steve?
that's fine. I'm not expecting people's feelings.
No, like those are all really valid points. I think it makes the assumption that we're able to pick up enough points to overcome where we're at now when those other teams have more chances to pick up points, when we haven't demonstrated that we can do that throughout this season.
But in the last 13 games we have.
But we've also gotten a bunch of ties, and ties aren't going to get us there. I don't think we're going to lose many games in these 4, right? But we could go 0-1-3 in these games, and that wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think, for me at least, for me at least, I think while we maybe technically don't need a win against Charleston, I do think we, for momentum and for just belief, we at least need a draw. I think if we squeak one out against Miami and it's not that dominated of a performance and we just win, and then we come home and lose to Charleston, I don't think that momentum gets us across the finish line. I feel like we have to go in commanding lead against, or look good against Miami, look like what we should look like against a team that has a -46 goal differential. And then from there, come home, have a great performance against Charleston, win or at least draw and look like we're in it to win it the whole time. And then after that, yes, I'll feel better. But if we look absolutely horrid against Charleston, what's the point? Like, yeah, cool, we get into the playoffs and we have to play Louis or Charleston, and it just looks terrible. Like, I don't know if I want that. Like, I would rather just bow out and be like, no, if we can't put a performance against Charleston, then what the hell's the point of even being?
No, wait, hold on a second. If I'm offering you no playoffs, or you at least get into the first round of the playoffs and you don't make it through, you're not telling me you're going to take no playoffs.
I mean, what was the score against Charleston before? Like, are you saying like we lost like 1-0? Yeah, sure. You know, flip a coin, we're going to get that. But if we completely embarrass ourselves against Charleston, we're walking away from our home field advantage at like 5 goals against or 3 goals against the 0.
Like when Birmingham came to Highmark a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if that happens, no, thank you. I don't want the embarrassment again. And like also just squeaking the playoffs and nothing changes and no one feels like there's anything that we need to change in this, you know, system to actually win the playoffs. No.
Yeah. Justin,
I would make the
ahead.
negative argument along those lines that if no matter what happens from this point out, nothing's going to change. I don't think anything's going to, there's not going to be a shift of unless Lily goes, sucks I didn't make the playoffs, I'm done with this team, I'm moving on. Unless that happens, I don't see anything changing. And I don't see anything like, I don't see them going out and spending money on a player. I don't see them going and changing the system. I don't see them. So I'm like, if we had been where Miami is and not made the playoffs, then I go, okay, there's probably going to be a shift in perspective and a shift in goals, a shift in, you know, the way we do things. But barely missing the playoffs, which I think is going to, like, if we miss, it's going to be like 1 point. I think nothing's going to change.
I mean, I do think that gives him or gives Lily a little bit of discredit because I feel like if he's been making the playoffs, he has been making the playoffs all this time. He has been adapting to this league. He's done something right. And I don't think that happens unless you're willing to learn from your mistakes and willing to change how you're doing things. And as much as we like to kind of overarching complain about feeling like Lily is Lily and he does what he does and he doesn't change, he has to have evolved and done something to keep up in this league because this league has changed. So there's no way that Lily is actually the same Lily from, 10 years ago.
I will say, I agree with everything you just said, both of you, but I do think it's interesting if you actually go back and watch Lily's response in the press conference, which I did not. I considered bringing it here and playing it so everyone can hear it, but go look at it online. We did not record it, so therefore I did not want to take credit for it and put it up here. It was interesting the way that he phrased it, where it was like, the points are so tight, so if we don't make it, it's just going to be like barely. Like it's like, we're right there. Everybody's right there. It almost feels like he's setting himself up. So like if we don't make it, it's like, well, we tried. We were close. So Justin, to your point, I would love to see stuff change. Like if we don't make the playoffs, you would think that's like a shock to the system and the team has to have some introspection and say, well, what didn't work? How do we make this better? That assumes that they don't every season. I'm sure that they do. But it also feels like if we're already sort of sowing the seeds of like, we were right there and everything was so tight and we just barely didn't make it, that's also teeing things up to be like, well, why change? We were right there. Why do anything different? Which I would hate to see.
And why change, I think, because there's not been a season where I think that Bob Lilly has been he's been earnest every season where he looks at the roster and he says, yeah, we've got some deficiencies. Yeah, we've got some gaps, but I think we can compete in this league. And I think this team, this roster has a chance to win a championship. He hasn't done it. Obviously, we've made the playoffs 6 times and gotten out of the first round twice. But I look at that and I say, I don't know that means enough changes. Do I think Bob Lilly will be here next year? 100%, right? If Bob Lilly's not here, it's his decision, not Tuffy and the team's. But I just question, okay, but you keep saying these teams are good enough. Yet year after year, we've talked about how the team doesn't progress. And this year we're talking about we can't even close out games in the regular season. So where's that disconnect? And that's the question I have for Bob. What changes for you next year to say, okay, I need to take the next step forward, and that has to be bigger than the things that I've changed in terms of staying competitive tactically or whatever. And I do. I mean, in my conversations with Bob, yeah, there's a lot of things that he talks about differently than he did 3 years ago. But at some point, the change needs to be more drastic for me. And I just don't see a scenario where that change is drastic enough to push us into the position where we're actually competing in the playoffs next season.
Yeah. Justin, this has been the question for you all season. Miami's a must win. Yeah.
Yes. If you lose to a team that has gotten 11 points all season long and has a negative 46 goal differential, you better be sitting home when the playoffs come around.
I do want to point out how Justin chose to phrase that without saying the phrase "must win."
Listen, some of this is just me picking on Justin, just because all season this has been the conversation. So you've been a good sport about it for sure. But Steve, I have you sort of front and center. Simple yes or no. Do the Hounds make the playoffs this year? Yes or no?
Right now, I'm saying no.
Josh?
I can't. It's unknowable, but I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And I'm getting really bad at trying to drag you guys center screen. Justin?
Yes, I think they make the playoffs.
Okay. There's
Mike?
YouTube. Yeah, I know. There's a YouTube short and an Instagram reel of me saying that I think they're going to do it. And at the time, I said I think they're going to do it pretty easily based on my really terrible scientific approach that we talked about in the last episode. That after talking to Justin, he was like, "That was all wrong." I actually think the playoff line is going to be higher than that. And I went, "Oh crap!" Now I'm on record saying yes. I will say yes, but I am fully prepared for them not to make it. Like, I think at this point, we have seen enough of this team that I think it's very easy as fans to go into every game being optimistic and saying like, yeah, but look, we're still a good team. We just haven't done it yet. And I think that's just the natural reaction as fans. But at a certain point, we actually need to take a hard look at sort of the history of this team and what has happened on the field and realize that we've got 4 games left. And to be able to turn this entire ship around and start to have this team perform in ways that they haven't performed yet this season is a really, really big ask. And I think, Justin, you made a really good, argument that, yes, we're still in a really bad situation. We're in 11th. But if you actually look at the recent stretch of games, we've been doing what we need to do, and we've only lost twice. In the Monterey game, yes, we lost, but we played well. So I think that we figure out some way to drag this across the line. Do I think that bodes well for our actual playoff hopes? Probably not. But, say that something crazy happens and we win our last 4. Again, no one's going to want to face a team that's lost 1 in the past 12, 13, 14, whatever, because it's 1 game and anything can happen. So I will say yes, but I'm also not going to be shedding tears at this point if it's no, because I've just kind of made peace with the fact that this may not happen. So that's where I stand. That is what we think. Obviously, let us know what you think. Gentlemen, any other sort of closing thoughts for this one before we get out of here?
I think
Miami plays midweek. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say Miami plays midweek against Louisville. So that should be a fun one to watch to see how Miami's doing and what they're going to bring to the table on Saturday. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Which nullifies your point of them going without their backup keeper against us.
I think he's like, I think
unless
it was
it's on a
violent
3-game ban.
Yeah, I think it was violent conduct, so I think he might still be suspended. But
That might
he
be true, too.
kicked a guy while the guy was like down in front of him, because the guy kneed him when he was going up for the ball. So he kicked him. The guy jumps up, and then that guy punches him. So they're both out for violent conduct, I believe. So yeah,
Sounds like I won't say his name. But hey, Reed dropping into the comments right now saying, I missed the whole thing. Got to go back and watch. So yes, Reed, apologies. We are now at the end of the episode. We appreciate you jumping in. Do go back and watch because we do talk a lot about this game and our thoughts. And I think that there is a lot of nuance to what's going on here. So guys, always a pleasure to chat with you. Looking forward to doing it again here soon. Like I said, I'm hoping that we have some midweek shows this week. We will see how things shake out. Otherwise, thank you everybody for watching and listening, especially those of you watching live. We appreciate all the comments. Even if we don't put them up on screen, we do see them. It is a good time. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening to this or watching. Again, the subscriptions really, really help in terms of sort of boosting our numbers and helping with the algorithms out there. So do spread the word and let people know about all the fun stuff that we're talking about out here. Otherwise, we will be back with more Hounds content very, very soon.
later.
See ya.
Later.